Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're cutting straight through the noise on a topic that's, well, exploded in complexity. Digital fraud. We're really not talking about those simple scam emails anymore, are we? We're diving deep into how artificial intelligence, AI, has essentially armed criminals with, frankly, frighteningly effective tools.
That's exactly right. Yeah, the era where you could, you know, spot a phishing attempt because the text was just riddled with typos. Or the sender was some poorly disguised royal demanding wire transfers. That's completely over. AI has, well, it's moved beyond just being a helpful tool. It's now a powerful weapon for, international organized crime. These new scams, they're hyper-personalized and, honestly, terrifyingly, they look virtually flawless on the surface.
And the financial scale, wow, it's hard to even comprehend sometimes. But we saw examples in the sources, the losses were just staggering. There was that one case, a woman reportedly lost $850,000 because a scammer used AI tools to pose as Brad Pitt and manipulate her over time.
850,000. And that level of sort of celebrity impersonation, it only scratches the surface, really. If you look at the high-value corporate targeting, the results are, well, devastating. We saw that example of a father reportedly lost $4 billion in Bitcoin. $4 billion. To phishing, that's voice phishing.
4 billion? That can't be just a random call.
No way. The sheer size of that loss suggests this wasn't some random cold call. This was likely a sophisticated, long-term manipulation, probably engineered to convince him to unlock or transfer massive digital assets, all under the guise of an urgent, trusted voice. A voice clone, most likely.
Okay, so our mission today is to really unpack exactly how AI is enabling this hyper-realism. We're talking deepfakes, voice clones, and critically give you the strategies you need to, fight back against this new generation of digital deception. All right, let's get into this core concept then. When we look at the source material, the argument that often comes up is that AI didn't really revolutionize scamming. It just made the old cons, perfect. But I kind of have to push back on that a little bit. If I can't trust the voice of my own child calling me sounding like they're in distress, hasn't removing human error fundamentally revolutionized the risk level?
That's a really fair challenge. You're right. The tactic itself, the pretexting, creating urgency,
Right.
impersonation, that stuff is ancient, right? But the game, it has fundamentally changed because the barrier to entry for creating high-quality, convincing fraud has just dropped to practically zero. The shift is from, easily spotted errors, bad grammar, weird phrasing, to communications that are grammatically flawless, contextually relevant, all thanks to generative AI tools like ChatGPT and others. They can now scale convincing material instantly.
So they're not wasting time on clumsy translations or anything. They're going straight for exploiting human psychology, just with perfect cover stories now.
Precisely. And this fluency, this perfection, it allows criminals to focus entirely on deploying these real-time cloning technologies, which really brings us to the two most manipulative and realistic types of fraud that we're seeing right now. First, you've got the voice clone scams, or phishing. And the scary part here is they only need a really small sample of audio, maybe from social media, a voicemail, to copy the voice of someone the victim knows well, a family member, a boss, a colleague. And they use that to create that immediate, urgent, high-pressure scenario.
That terrifying call, right? Mom, Dad, I'm in trouble. I need money right now. But it's in a voice you recognize instantly. You trust it completely.
Exactly. And the second type, going even further, is deepfake video scams. There isn't just audio anymore. They're creating super realistic videos. It could be of a trusted person, a loved one, maybe a public figure, to manipulate the victim directly, often through a video call. The real insight here, I think, is that when the surface level of communication, the text, the voice, the video becomes technically flawless, our own human trust mechanism becomes the only firewall they actually have to breach. We fundamentally have to learn to distrust perfection now.
That idea, learning to distrust perfection, that's key, isn't it? And it's hard to wrap your head around that level of manipulation scaling up. But let's look at how quickly these scammers are applying this really sophisticated tech across, well, every possible target. From small businesses, which you'd think might have less robust protection, right up to major government bodies.
Yeah, let's start with a small business case first, because it really highlights the psychological and reputational costs. It goes way beyond just the financial loss.
Right, we're talking about Deanna Newman. She runs C'est La Vie Jewelry in Ontario, Canada. This was like her dream full-time job. But earlier this year, some foreign company, reportedly operating out of China, just completely copied her business name, her brand identity, everything.
Everything. They set up a fake website, looked totally professional, C'est La Vie Birmingham, they called it, claiming to be a jeweler based in Birmingham, UK. And they used AI-generated product images. These pictures looked really high quality, right? Designed specifically to fool customers into buying what turned out to be cheap, low-quality goods, think like Temu or Shein quality stuff, and then they'd ship that instead of what was pictured.
But the real kick in the gut, the truly nasty part, was the emotional angle they added.
Good.
This fake site claimed it was run by these non-existent owners, Patrick and Eileen, and they advertised that Eileen was selling the business because her husband, Patrick, had recently died tragically.
Which is just awful. And it meant that the real business owner, Deanna, started getting flooded with angry calls and messages from disappointed customers demanding refunds for junk they'd received. But even worse than that, she started getting these heartfelt messages of sympathy from confused customers, wishing her well after her husband's supposed death, her husband who was very much alive and probably standing right next to her.
Oh my God. That is just deeply malicious, isn't it? The stress must have been immense. She was forced to make a public video just to prove she was real, that her husband was alive. She had to redesign her entire website. And she still lost sales because potential customers were confused or lost trust because of this scam site using such a similar name. The cost here is reputation, it's time, it's emotional energy. It's way more than just the money lost on those cheap goods.
Exactly. And if we shift from that personal devastation to the institutional threat, we see the exact same principle at play: exploiting human vulnerability, just on a different scale. Look at that institutional breach involving the Noosa Council over in Australia.
Yeah. Right. The council confirmed they lost, what was it, $1.9 million after recovering some, but initially it was $2.3 million lost. And they described it as a sophisticated, alleged international fraud attack.
And crucially, the council explicitly confirmed that AI technology was used by these international fraudsters specifically to imitate personalities. Experts looking at it believe the criminals probably started by gathering huge amounts of open-source information. Think organizational charts, public reports, staff lists, and then used deepfake voice mimicry or maybe highly tailored phishing emails to convince a specific staff member to approve these massive fund transfers. This was an attack that basically bypassed all the technical security by weaponizing the employees' trust and their knowledge of internal procedures.
And the threat level they face is just constant, isn't it? The council reported they intercept somewhere between 500 and 1,500 cyber hacking attempts every single day, including, get this, a fake email sent supposedly on behalf of the mayor and CEO every second day.
That sheer volume, it creates what experts call alert fatigue. You just get worn down by the constant low-level threats. It softens the target, makes them potentially less vigilant for the one hyper-realistic AI-powered attack that finally gets through.
Exactly. The human firewall can only withstand so many automated attempts before one just slips through the cracks. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. We've talked about financial loss, institutional breaches, but let's talk about the sheer psychological leverage these scammers are getting, especially by targeting specific communities and demographics. This is where that personalization really gets weaponized, it feels like.
Oh, absolutely. The emotional harm from these targeted attacks is, well, profound. The data shows nearly 9 out of 10 extortion victims reported significant emotional damage. This includes things like blackmail, obviously, but also harassment in over a third of cases and reputation damage in over a fifth. It's devastating. And yeah, certain demographics are definitely disproportionately exposed. Our sources consistently show that Gen Z and millennials, they account for roughly 2 in 3 victims of these extortion scams. More than half, 58% of Gen Z users report being targeted, and nearly 30%, almost a third, have actually been a victim.
Wow. So what is it specifically about the younger demographic that makes them so vulnerable? Is it simply that they spend more time online or on their phones?
It's deeper than just screen time, I think. Their risk profile seems linked to their platform choices and behaviors. They're highly active on alternative platforms, things like Discord, Twitch, Tumblr platforms that often prioritize quick engagement and anonymity over really rigid identity verification. Their digital lives are very mobile first, and they engage heavily in what you might call low-oversight casual commerce, buying, selling, trading online more informally. This kind of exposure makes them prime targets for really severe threats, like sextortion, which targets 1 in 6 mobile users, apparently, and also virtual kidnapping, where AI voice cloning is frequently used to create fake distress calls to convince parents their child has been abducted and demand ransom.
So it's the sheer depth of their digital footprint combined with the nature of the platforms they frequent. That's what the criminals are exploiting.
Absolutely. And we're also seeing incredibly sophisticated attacks targeting specific cultural groups. The Latino community is a prime example highlighted in the research. Scammers there exploit very specific societal obstacles. Things like maybe limited digital access in some areas, financial stress, anxieties around immigration status. The scams get personalized. They might pretend to be notarios, who are often trusted legal advisors in many Latin American cultures, much more than just a notary public in the US or Canada, offering fake legal help. Or they create fake job listings that perfectly match the real hopes and needs for steady income within the community.
So the fraud literally speaks the victim's language, mirrors their specific fears, and exploits these deep-seated cultural trust mechanisms. That awareness is just so crucial. Okay, so since AI is clearly amplifying this threat across the board, we absolutely must be diligent about our defense strategies.
Critical thinking is. It's truly essential now. We live in a world where information is often deliberately engineered to overload you, to make you panic. We need to be proactive. And it's important to remember, many of the general phishing red flags, they're still completely relevant, even if the grammar is perfect now. Things like looking closely at the sender's domain name. Is it slightly misspelled? Like PayPal with an I instead of an L. Generic greetings like Dear Customer instead of your name. Urgent requests pressuring you into immediate action. Unsolicited attachments or links. Those basics, they're still your absolute foundation.
Okay, but now we need that second layer, right? The AI-specific red flags. Because the communication looks and sounds so real now, what should we be looking for when the text itself is professional, grammatically perfect?
Yeah, this is where context and style become really important. Even if the language is perfect English, does it feel slightly robotic? Is it overly formal for the supposed sender? Or conversely, does it contain slightly failed attempts to be personal? Like maybe it references something about you that's a bit out of date or just slightly wrong. That should be a flag. And then on audio and video calls, you need to listen and look for those little technical imperfections that AI hasn't quite mastered yet. If a voice call sounds strangely robotic, or if there are awkward, unnatural pauses, or if the emotional tone just doesn't quite match the urgency of the message they're delivering, be suspicious. In deepfake videos, look closely. Are the eye movements unnatural? Do the lips sync perfectly with the audio, or are they slightly off? Is the lighting or shadowing around the face kind of weird or inconsistent? They're getting incredibly convincing, but often they're still flawed if you look closely enough.
Right, those little tells. Okay, so let's get really practical. Actionable protection steps. What's the single most effective defense against, say, a cloned voice call, especially if it sounds exactly like someone you love?
The shared secret. This is so simple but so effective. Establish a shared secret word or question with your close family and friends, something only you and they would know the answer to. If you get a suspicious call demanding urgent action or money, ask for the secret word or ask the question. If they can't answer it or try to bluff their way through, you know immediately it's a fabrication. Hang up. And additionally, always verify any request for money or urgent action through a separate, trusted channel. If you get a weird email from your bank, don't click the link. Go to the bank's official website yourself. If you get a distress call, hang up and call the person back on the number you know is theirs. Never hit reply or call back the number that just contacted you.
That makes so much sense. Verify independently. And what about standard security practices? We always hear about two-factor authentication, 2FA. What's the deep dive insight there? Is it still good enough?
2FA is absolutely vital, yes. But how you implement it matters hugely now. You should enable 2FA everywhere you possibly can. But, and this is key, prioritize using app-based authenticator codes, like from Google Authenticator or Authy, or even better, Pivotal hardware security keys if you can. Try to avoid relying solely on text message, SMS-based 2FA codes whenever possible.
Why specifically avoid the text message codes? They seem so convenient.
They are convenient, but they're also vulnerable to a specific attack called SIM swapping. And AI tools are making it easier for criminals to automate parts of this process. Basically, criminals convince your phone provider, sometimes using social engineering, sometimes exploiting insider access to transfer your phone number to a SIM card they control. Once they have your number, they intercept your incoming SMS messages, including those 2FA codes. Game over. App-based codes generated on your device or physical keys are far more secure against that specific type of intersection attack.
Okay, that clarification on SMS versus app-based 2FA is incredibly important. Really good takeaway there. All right, so that brings us to maybe the ultimate mental tool for pausing when that initial panic, that urgency hits you from one of these scams, the STOP framework.
Yeah, this is a great one. A simple framework we really encourage every listener to try and commit to memory. It goes like this. S stands for slow down. Just pause. Don't let that feeling of urgency pressure you into immediate action. Scammers rely on panic. T stands for test them. Ask that probing question, that shared secret, something only the real person would know the answer to. O stands for opt out. If the conversation feels off, if anything seems suspicious, just end it. Hang up the phone, close the chat window, you don't know of anything. And finally, P stands for prove it. Verify the identity, verify the request through a completely separate and trusted channel before taking any action.
STOP. Slow down, test them, opt out, prove it. That's really practical. Okay, so wrapping this up, what does this all really mean for us? It feels like this AI battleground, it relies so heavily on the human factor, doesn't it? Our ingrained capacity for trust, our vulnerability to emotional leverage, and ultimately just our awareness level.
I think that's exactly right. Awareness truly is the best armor we have right now. By understanding the mechanics of how these hyper-realistic attacks work, and critically, by sharing this knowledge, talking about it, removing the shame and silence that often surrounds falling victim to a scam, we can collectively help people develop that instinct to just take that necessary step back, to pause before they act on what feels like an emergency but might be completely fabricated.
Absolutely. Awareness and that pause. So here's a final thought to leave you with. Since these AI-driven scams are becoming so intensely personalized, using details scraped from our digital lives, perfectly mimicking the voices of people we love, even copying cultural nuances to build false trust, how does this rise of deepfake technology, this ability to perfectly simulate reality, force us to fundamentally redefine whom and what we truly trust, both online and perhaps increasingly offline as well? Something significant to mull over until our next deep dive.